always in a Metallica mood. The struggle within, the struggle to score goals. That's the new Metallica song. Bill Meltzer from NHL.com, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, HockeyBuzz.com. Going to join us in just a moment. We got a ton to talk about. And we're actually going to talk about Alex DeBrincat and Johnny Gaudreau. We're going to revisit that topic. Plus, we'll talk about the team, what they've done of late. Win last night against the New Jersey Devils. Hockey makes 0 sense. They outshoot the Devils 33-18 in their last game. They lose 3-2. They get outshot last night 49-24. They win 2-1. That's hockey in a nutshell. Let me tell you about BetParx. Fantastic casino and sportsbook app, and it's right in the palm of your hand. Simple to use, easy to navigate. You do not need to be a savant with the phone to figure it out or online. Take it from me. This BetParx app is everything you've been looking for in a mobile casino and sportsbook. And like I said, it's right in your pocket. It travels with you. Easy to sign up, easy to deposit, easy payouts, faster to win than ever before. You got to check it out. World Cup final. You got Argentina and France. I think France is a slight fave. You can get in on that action, plus some live in-game action. Obviously, hockey. You've got college hoops and pro hoops. You got football still, tons to bet on. So get the BetParx app. And right now, all BetParx users can use the promo code Jason750. That'll get your risk-free bet up to $750. New and existing users, Jason750. Terms and conditions do apply. So download the BetParx app today. You do need to be over 21, present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Today's kind of a momentous day, speaking of Conquerville Subaru, because my son, Evan Xavier Myrtetus, today is his 16th birthday. And if you recall from when I was back on the radio with Mikey Miss, on the Mike Missinelli show, the first time I had the commercial, it said, I bought my first car at Conquerville, and my son's going to buy his there too. And Mike chimes in and says, your kid is 8. Not 8 anymore. I shot Mikey Miss a text this morning. He is 16 today. So we got to get down to Conquerville Subaru and check out the great certified pre-owned inventory, list of incoming Subaru vehicles, get in on the Share the Love event, which goes on until January 3rd, where Subaru will donate $250 for every new car sold to one of 5 charities, your choice: ASPCA, Make-A-Wish, Meals on Wheels, Nations Parks, and Conquerville Subaru's hometown charity, Namor's Children's Hospital of Delaware. December, great time to visit the beautiful showroom of Route 202 in Glen Mills and check it out. Head in there for the holiday break. Check out that certified pre-owned inventory and a list of incoming Subaru vehicles. And it's more than a dealership, great service department, free car wash with every visit. Visit ConquervilleSubaru.com and check out the showroom of Route 202 in Glen Mills. And remember, Conquerville cares. Let's get to him right now. You know who he is. NHL.com, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, HockeyBuzz.com. It's Bill Meltzer. Billy, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm still marveling at, I've seen many great goaltending performances over the years, but you have, it's tiered. There's a stratosphere of it. And last night was A++, not just the number of shots that Carter Hart saw, but the difficulty, the breakaways, 2-on-1s, point blank shots, deflections. The way he was tracking the puck was phenomenal on a whole other level. And considering that he didn't have his best game the last time out, that was a statement game from him, and just shows that of as we've talked about who are just the pieces are part of the solution. That was case in point, and Exhibit A as to why Carter Hart is one of those guys. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, he grabbed that Sharpie marker and for the list of guys it says, "Are you part of it going forward here?" And he put a huge check mark next to his name again last night. I think he's got 10 of his 23 starts where he has over a 940 in-game save percentage, which is a stunning number. But like Bill, that performance last night, you mentioned there's tiers of great goalie performances and all the odd man rushes, breakaways, fighting through traffic, all of that. Even the goal that was scored was a beautiful one from Jack Hughes to open the scoring in the game. But that reminded me of Jaro Halak in 2010 against the Caps. That's the level that goaltending performance was on. Yeah,
for sure. Or Michael Neuwirth against the Caps. Yeah. That one game absolutely stole in that playoff series. That last night's game from Hart reminded me of that. Where just after the early Hughes goal, no one was beating him. You just knew no matter how difficult the save was, he was going to come up with it. And that's pretty amazing, especially given as last night, as with most games, that the the Flyers have no margin for error pretty much any night. And, it's kind of amazing. I was looking at some numbers today for the Friday forecheck column for the Flyers website. And last night was the 12th game out of the 31 they've played, but they've entered the third period tied. Now, only the second one they've won. But 12 games have been tied going into the third period. And they've also had 8 games where they've led going into the third period, which they've won 7. So that's 20 out of the 31 games that have been up for grabs going into the third period. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. And, it's amazing. That speaks to great goaltending because they're right at the bottom of the NHL when it comes to goal for. So the goaltending is keeping them in it. Even though they gave up 49 shots last night, way too many odd man rushes. I think the thing that just impresses me the most is that Carter also knows, Bill, that his team, we talk about the NHL. I always say it's a race to 4 goals. For the Flyers, it's a race to 3 that they don't often get to the finish line. And knowing that through a game that, against a team like New Jersey that's stingy as well, and knowing that you just, after that first goal, you really can't give up anything else or you're not going to have a chance to check a win. It's just not going to happen. That's a huge amount of pressure on him. And he seems to be dealing with that part of the equation masterfully.
Oh, absolutely. His focus level, that's been a definite area where you've seen him grow a lot. Even last year, even in the bubble season, there were still times where he'd get beaten early in the game or whatever, and before you knew that another one was by him, whether his fault or not. And he gets refocused immediately, even in some games that haven't gone his way this year.
Mm-hmm.
He just reels it back in and gets reset, and that mentality takes time to develop. Once a goalie develops it, that's when he's really hitting his prime, and that's been to be the biggest thing here because he's still a young goalie chronologically, right?
Yeah.
But he's hitting his prime right now, and it's great to see.
Well, Bill, the one thing that people say he's hitting his prime right now, trade him because you can get a ton for him. And the Flyers are 4 to 6 years away from competing anyway because of a rebuild. I don't subscribe to that. I think a goalie prime is basically 27 to 31, 27 to 32. Most guys at his age aren't even in the league yet. And if they are, they're just scratching the surface. I mean, Jonathan Quick wasn't in the league. I mean, won 2 cups. I thought he was the best goalie on the planet for a 3-year period. A lot of guys are like that. To me, I'm not trading him. I can never gauge where my team is in a process of rebuilding without goaltending. You just can't.
For sure. No, you absolutely can. And while nobody is untouchable completely, I mean, there are fantasy trades you can make up. Oh, sure, yeah, I would trade Carter Hart if Connor McDavid was coming this way. But those things are just not going to happen. But you look at you look at the team and where it is and what you're trying to build. I mean, when you're trying to build a team from scratch, very often you start from the net out, right? And as such, when you have a piece like that, you hang on to him. And yes, the Flyers have depth in goal. Well, maybe maybe you can trade from some of that depth in goal as you move ahead. I mean, Urson is a good prospect, and Kolosov looks like he's going to be a good prospect. But there's a development process to get there, and I'm really not a believer in you get better by getting a lot worse.
Yeah,
I think you have to have pieces you build around, even before you add pieces through a draft or through trades and bringing in young players in some deals. I think that you have to have some pieces. Okay, this is part of what we're building with. And Hart is absolutely one of those pieces. So I don't subscribe either to you trade him now, or you listen, sure, but I can't imagine a trade that would make sense on another side to where that might be something you would do.
Yeah, I agree. And when I look at Hart too, I just see a guy that can be the cornerstone. To me, the franchise goaltender is equivalent to the franchise quarterback in football. If you don't have one, you're looking for one. And you would think, I see a lot of it on Twitter, trade him because you can get a ton for him. And I look at it and I go, Flyer fans have amnesia because for so many years you had a good team, but you weren't strong enough in the crease, and that cost you not only maybe going another round in the playoffs, but it probably cost them a cup at some point in the 6 times they've gone to a cup final since they won back-to-back cups.
No question. 2010, if the Flyers had an elite goalie, they win that series.
I mean, Leighton played well. I mean, 3 shutouts against Montreal, but still, he wasn't a high pedigree goalie.
No, and he certainly didn't play to that level in the finals either.
Exactly.
So that's really where that separation happens sometimes. And even you go back to 97, the Flyers got swept in that series, but 3 of those 4 games were up for grabs, and Mike Vernon just outplayed both Hextall and Snow.
Yeah,
and that could be all the difference in a series. And that's if you have a special goalie, an elite tier goalie, and Hart certainly has the ability to be that, you hang on to him and you build around him. And simple.
He's 24.
Yeah,
let's not act like he's coming up to the end of his prime or something like that. He's not. The goal that he let in last night, I watched it 100 times because Hughes is magical right now. He's got 9 goals, I think, in his last 10 or 11 games.
Yeah.
He's been great, and you see the guy floats on the ice. Provorov gets too wide there and gives up the middle of the ice. I think he maybe thought he had some support there in the middle, and he did. But the fact that he walked through basically 3 guys reaching with their sticks and giving up the middle of the ice was something that I know Torts is going to show on video ad nauseum, because you got to play inside the dots, especially on a PK on an entry. You'll give him wide. He's looking to attain the zone wide, but when you give him the middle, he's going to take it. And then he's got an option as he goes in, guy right there, cocked and ready with the trigger position if he wants to lay that puck off for a surefire goal. So Sanheim's got to kind of pull up a little bit. But Hughes, unbelievable. And the Provorov defense on it didn't look good, and it didn't look good for Provy.
It really didn't. That was something where, and I do think he had support there.
Yeah,
he thought he had support. Sedlak was one of the guys beaten there too. It was quick succession. It was Sedlak, Provorov, and all of a sudden he's scoring. That was there were other plays in that game, and Tortorella after the game, rightfully so, called out the neutral zone play. And there were times if you give up the neutral zone too easily, you're going to make your defensemen look bad, because they have to back in at that point. And when you have a team with all the speed that Jersey has, if you're forced to back in, you're in real trouble. So it's so you look at the defensemen a little bit, but it really is about the team. I mean, why did they limit Jersey so much the last time they played them? Because they controlled the neutral zone. Jersey couldn't attack them with speed very often. That's a game that you play that game 10 more times, unless your goalie just plays the way Hart did, you're going to lose that game 9 out of 10 times. So.
Yeah. The thing is too is when they transition and your neutral zone plays bad, they're back on top of you so quick. You almost don't have time to gain your structure and your spacing, and I think that was part of it, because they were a little redundant there on the zone entry too, but they just all misplayed it and were reaching. The subplot last night, Bill, and probably becomes a main story today, was the fact that Kevin Hayes didn't play an entire third period for a second time this season. We're not even at the midway point. We're 31 games in. He's been benched for an entire period, 3-0 loss against San Jose. He and Konechny were benched. Konechny picked up some of his minutes last night, and he didn't see the third period ice at all last night in a very tight game. And he's your highest point producer right now as well. Yeah,
I mean, Tortorella has not made any bones about calling him out for the two-way part. I mean, listen, the Flyers, I thought one of the interesting sub-stories from last night's game, and he pushed the right button. Tortorella absolutely pushed the right button there. He reversed the deployment of the PP1 and PP2, but at the start of the second period.
Yep.
Actually, they were sending the unit with Lawton out there to start power plays, and they would finish power plays too. They get about 25 seconds for what usually is PP1, of which Hayes is an integral part, and he wasn't the only guy screwing up, because they just could not remotely get an entry. I don't care which side of the ice they tried.
They looked like they were dancing to a different song every guy.
Yeah, it was horrid to watch. And then the little tap dancing routine that he had at the blue line, where he finally got stripped and it goes away for another eye, and that was it. That was really the final straw as to to why you didn't see him again the rest of the night. He just had nothing going last night. So I'm sure given another day's space, Tortorella will say, is he in my doghouse? No, he's out of my doghouse. He's a key player for us. But I was going with the guys who had it going a little bit more.
Yeah.
And
I think he's his own worst enemy sometimes, Bill, because he knows he's got great puck protection ability. And sometimes you go, this is my thing. And you got to realize that even if you're really good at it, sometimes you got to just chip that thing deep.
Yeah. And that's what I thought Lawton and Cates did that especially well in last night's game. Every other line spent way too much time defending. Mm-hmm. They actually helped stabilize things. Yeah. And I don't know how the underlying numbers ended up looking, just because Devils had so many shots and shot attempts. But I really thought that those were the guys who settled things down, as they had to. I mean, Konechny took a bad penalty in the final minute of the game, and it was nice to see, actually, seeing Tippett and Frost out in the final minute of a 1-goal game. Mm-hmm. They look like guys who aren't comfortable defending a 1-goal lead against a. But I mean, one thing Tortorella indicated is he's going to keep sending them out there, keep giving them that chance, and see if they learn to handle that situation, which is good. That's what you want to see. But Tortorella made the point that you need guys who help stabilize things, who can change the momentum a little bit. And when you're making low percentage plays, panicky decisions, taking bad penalties, and the power play goal that Hughes scored, it started with a lazy hooking penalty by Hayes.
Yeah, not moving his feet.
And that kind of thing will get you on the bench. And Tortorella has shown. I mean, he's scratched D'Angelo. He benched Hayes and Konechny. This time he benched Hayes again. He called out Farabee just earlier in the day. Certainly called out Frost a number of times. He doesn't care who you are. If you don't play at his expectations, you're going to hear about it and you won't play. And that's
you're going to take a seat.
Yeah, and that's he's consistent with that. So it's up to the players to adapt. I expect Hayes to see his normal ice time against the Rangers. Flyers will need him to step up against his old club.
Yep.
And and go from there. But yes, it's already happened twice, and you certainly don't want to see it a third time in the same season.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of runway left. There really is. The deployment of Noah Cates, Bill, I think is a really interesting thing too, because this is, by NHL standard, a young player who doesn't have a ton of experience. He comes out of a 4-year program in college, so he is way more mature. But boy, is he getting handed some really mature responsibility on the ice at very key times. And to me, he's answered the bell. He never seems overwhelmed or like the puck's going to explode on him in key situations in a 1-goal game or a tight situation. Really calm player, very detail-oriented, as we know. But John Tortorella is really putting him in a lot of positions. And while we're finding out all this, data and, who's who and what's what, we're finding out that this is a player that looks to me like a good fit as a long-term 3C.
I was going to say, more as a bottom 6 guy.
Yep.
They're determined in him being a center. Over time, he'll get better on faceoffs. In doing that deployment, you are going to sacrifice a little offense with him, and I think that's shown so far this season. I mean, he actually last year in his brief time with the team, he actually had, I think, as many, if not more, points in that short span as he's had, over 31 games.
9 and 16 last year.
Yeah. So if you look at the bigger picture, and actually last night he had a little offense into it too. Made several good plays in the O-zone. Passed the puck pretty well. Actually assisted on both of the goals. But the second one, he made a really good play along the blue line that actually created the shorthanded break created the breakaway opportunity rather for Konechny. So he does a lot. He specializes in the little things. He can help you without contributing points. And incidentally, I thought in the third period last night, just talked about Tippett and Frost in the last minute. I thought those two guys, as the clock was winding towards the latter part of the period, those two guys made a couple of pretty good defensive plays too. Yeah. That rubs off. I mean, seeing a young guy like Kate, seeing a peer doing that can rub off on teammates too. So, obviously the Flyers have a long way to go, and it's going to go beyond this year. But those are the little things that they're trying to establish when I talk about the standard of play and those kind of things. The playing more the way that Cates plays. Just in terms of the attention to detail and in terms of the poise. You don't panic into making low percentage plays. You just keep rolling, keep playing your game. So
I feel like if it was 2013, 14 or 14, 15 with the roster that they had, if they had this identity that this team has devoid of talent with that team that had talent, that they would have been a team that would have been needed to be reckoned with. They really would have. I think that, they're resilient. They don't get down. They battle to the end, even when they lose. They seem unaffected in a way of losing heartbreak overtime games and 1-goal games. And they come out the next game and they spill it again. Do they have every period that's perfect? Hell no. Second period the other night was hideous. There's portions in the game that still look really ugly, but they are resilient, man. If you had that identity with that 14-15 team, oofa, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And the other thing I will say is that while they don't have the really top end guys, they do have guys who have talent, guys who have the upside to be contributors. Not if you look at the JVR, Frost, and Tippett line. Of course they had the 4-point game for JVR and Frost in Arizona, but I thought the first period against Colorado they were really good.
Yeah.
It just and they were on the ice for the for the York goal. Now in the second period it was pretty ugly for that line, and that's a little bit up and down. But but it was in the even the Vegas game they easily could have had a multi-point game. I think that line seems to be coming along. You want to hopefully you can have multiple lines going at the same time.
Yeah.
But so I think there are players with talent. Farabee certainly has talent. You want to see consistency. And while none of those guys I mentioned are probably going to be your point per game guys in the NHL, the real top end guys, but it's not that they're devoid of talent or that they're entirely devoid of speed either. I think they have some elements, but they're more of I think good supporting cast players than your lead role guys. Konecny's the closest thing to a lead role guy. And even you compare him to the real top end guys, the Draisaitl's of the league. No, he's not at that level, but he's a good hockey player certainly, and is in that next grouping down. So there is some talent there. They just need the lead actors, above those guys, and that's something that has to develop over time. But I think that when I think of a team that's devoid of talent, I really go back to that 06-07 team, because they had some guys who simply couldn't play, didn't belong in the NHL at all, and then you had guys who were veterans who didn't even want to be there.
Yeah,
and that to me felt. It's funny how they turned that around in a year, because that felt like a more hopeless situation than the current situation, having lived through both of them.
Yeah, I mean, TK is an interesting one because, he has the 3 24-goal seasons in a row leading up to the 1920 season where he played 66 games and had 24 goals. And this became a little bit of a thing last night. A guy tweeted me, Kevin Ferguson. He said, this team needs top 3 picks the next 3 years. TK will never be a 30-goal scorer. Of course, my wife's calling me. And sadly, by the time the Flyers are in contention, Hart will be past his prime. So many bad takes there. So I replied to him, Bill, and I just said, TK scored the 24 goals in 3 straight seasons. And in 1920, 24 goals in 66 games when the pandemic hit. And that was a 29.82 goal per 82 pace that season for him. This year, he's got 11 in 31 Flyers games played, and he's only played in 25. So per 31, he's on pace for 31.74 goals. And per just the 25 on an 82 game pace would be 39 goals. So, I mean, he's a guy that is holding up his end of the bargain. That's where he is. So that's where I mean, that's I think the best you can hope for from Travis Konechny.
No, no question, and that's that's a very good hockey player. I think he can be a 30-goal guy, or at least a guy who consistently is in the upper 20s. Is that the is that an elite top end guy? No, but it certainly is a productive player who plays in the upper end of most teams' lineups. And guess what? If you put an truly elite center with him, then all of a sudden I think he is a 30-goal guy.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and a guy tweeted me, this guy Robert, well, he didn't like the fact that I used dude. He goes, "You really don't get to count missed games in what might have happened." He said, "I like TK Hardnose, one of our better offensive players, becoming more responsible every year. But seriously, he missed games. He has 11 and 31, not 11 and 25. When he actually scores 30, then he'll be a 30-goal guy." So I replied to him, I said, "I literally did the numbers of 11 and 31 games played. Did you not read the entire tweet? 11 and 31 games is 31.74. Come on, dude." And he goes, "Don't dude me, jackass. I read it, and respectfully, I said you can't factor in games that he missed. So screw you, dude. Go talk to some crumb like not me." That's when I said, okay, maybe time to log off Twitter again. Unbelievable. TK's been good. Bill, Cam York here to stay?
He sure looks like it. Yep,
yeah,
he sure looks like it. It's not just the way he's triggering the rush or the goal that he scored in Colorado, which is just really showing off his agility and nice finish around the net as the puck went to him. And by the way, I still can't believe there were no assists in that goal, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But just his poise, his play around the net, his defensive stick, all those things are really falling into place for him. They've had him on the right side where he said he doesn't like to play, and he hasn't skipped a beat. So he certainly looks like a guy who. And listen, I could be regretting this in a few weeks if all of a sudden he goes into a slump, and it's still a small sample size. But even with the Phantoms, after being fine, not great early on, he's gotten better and better as the AHL season has gone along, and he's taken that to the next step so far since he's been called up. He looks, if you compare to how Zamula looked before he was sent down, versus how York has looked since he's been called up. York looks like he belongs, and Zamula, you're hoping he gets to the point where he belongs, and that's really where I think that the Cam has advanced. I think that there were times, even last year during his 30 games with the club last year, he still looked really raw at times. You can see some polish. Yeah. That's starting to be part of his game on a more regular basis. So if I had to say sitting here today, yeah, I'd say he's here to stay. I think he'll be up in the NHL to stay.
I think the line that Coach used last night, he said he just got a place in a spice factory, and Tim goes, "A spice factory?" And he said, "Yeah, he just needed a little salt and pepper, a little spice." And he had a great dangle at the blue line too. Bill, one of the things that's kind of making the rounds right now is the TSN Craig Button list of the top 50 players under 24, NHL affiliated players and prospects. They had to be 23 or younger as of the start of this season, October 11th. So that cuts Carter Hart out because he turned 24 on August 13th. But the Flyers don't have anybody on the list. And I know a lot of people are freaking out about that. But I will say this there's obvious guys like Cale Makar, Jason Robertson, Jack Hughes, Suzuki, Dahlin, top 5. There's a lot of great players on here, but the Flyers littered this list last year and the last 5 years. They were all over these kind of under 24 lists, but they are what they are. Look, would I like to have some of these players on this list? Absolutely. But I take these lists with a grain of salt.
Oh, sure. And you look at the list a few years down the line, you're going to say, well, why wasn't so-and-so on the list? Or boy, you overrated this guy. And maybe that guy has a knee injury and it takes him a long time to recover, or shoulder surgery or something. It changes over time. You definitely wouldn't have guys on the list. But, if you go back to those number of years, and this is when this is a little bit younger. This is prospect age, but if you look at the THN, the Hockey News Future Watch issues, 2018, 2019, 2020, Flyers were at the top or the top 5 every year.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about guys that were a year out, 2 years out, in some cases 3 years out from the draft year, and then for whatever reason things happen. Guys stagnate, guys fall backwards. Now when you're getting into 23, 24 years old, that's when you want to see them make that move at the NHL level to guys who are going to be impact guys. But I don't worry. I don't worry too much about those lists. I glance at them. I don't get into too much debating about them. Actually, a couple of years ago, when Ivan Provorov seemed to be that just half step away from moving into the top echelon of defensemen, this is the COVID year for the bubble, and he was left off of, I think it was NHL Network's list. He said, "I don't play hockey to get on some list."
Yeah.
And that was a great quote, and it's true. Don't worry about the list. Just look at how the guy is playing, and hope he keeps progressing. I don't put too much stock, and that's with total respect, obviously, to a guy like Craig, who's been on this, and
he's a friend of the show,
good friend of the show, and I'm looking forward to talking to again before the draft. He's such a good go-to guy for that stuff. So it's not said with any disrespect to Craig. It's just the way I view it. Ratings are nice, but really it's all about the improvement of a team. And until the Flyers are in a better position to really compete, not just go into all these games tied in the third period, but actually be a team that can win those games.
Yeah.
Then I'll worry about where they rank against the teams that are contending. At first, they have a lot of work to do to get in that ballpark. So.
Yeah, I agree with you, Craig. We'll be getting him on again, and you'll be joining us again. We always have a great conversation with Craig Button from TSN. Bill, I got some inquiries recently about Jay O'Brien. Speaking of development, obviously Jay O'Brien was kind of a shock pick in that first round from Ron Hextall and Chris Pryor, and we've seen him kind of bop around a little bit and try and find his path, and he's got some okay numbers this year, but should we expect anything out of Jay O'Brien, or do we write this one off and not worry about it moving forward? And is he even going to be a player that can play for a guy like Torts?
Well, if you would have asked me this a year ago when it looked like he was surging, I would say don't write him off yet. And in fairness to O'Brien, he's had a lot of injuries, and injuries will set a kid back. Last year he actually was a point a game player, and that was playing knowing he was going to need surgery in the offseason. That was a significant surgery. Now that being said, he's the equivalent of a fifth-year senior because he sat out a year, or he went to the BCHL while he was in the college transfer protocol. So it's now or never, and he's hit a level where he's been a point a game guy at the collegiate level, but never really been a dominant guy. He's been a good power play guy. He has a good shot. He can really skate. But if you have to make the call on an entry-level deal, I would say he's probably not going to end up getting signed unless he really catches fire in the, from January onward. Also he was a pick from a previous regime.
Yeah.
But this is what I'll say about the pick, and he was going to be somebody's first-round pick. I had him on the sleeper list for that draft, and it was actually from a scout from another organization who I've known for a number of years, who said, "Hey, someone's going to take him in the first round." Guys like Jay O'Brien are the kind of guys that Boston has often taken in the second or third round, and you look back a few years, why'd we miss that guy? Because he's a guy who dominated against a lower level of play.
Yeah,
and some of those guys make it. A lot of those guys don't make it. There's a criticism of the Flyers organization that this is a team that always goes safe. They always go safe. They go for the two-way player. Well, when you take a guy who's been dominant against low-level competition, you're taking a major risk. You're swinging for the fences, and you're going to strike out more than you're going to hit.
Yeah.
And that's that. So you can't have it both ways. If you want to draft for hey, if we hit a home run, we're onto something. There's a good chance we'll miss. Then that's one way. Or there's I mean they had just drafted Joel Farabee in that same draft. Now I would have liked to see them take Keandre Miller.
Yep.
We every year I do a mock draft on the Flyers website, and actually I had Farabee off the board one pick before the Flyers picked.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dallas had the pick before the Flyers. I had Dallas taking him, and and so Keandre Miller was actually who I picked at 14 for the Flyers, thinking just his package of athletic skills, as raw as he was, as a guy who could just change position from wing to defense. No, he had a lot to learn about playing D, but just really loving the upside. So with Miller still on the board a few picks later, I would have loved to see the Flyers take him. But I understood the O'Brien pick, and I wouldn't mind in the future if the Flyers took a few swings at players who dominated lower levels, and you're hoping it translates as he moves up. The most recent one is Tuamala, who did not make the Finnish national junior team. He struggled in their top league, and he's playing well, but he's in a minor. He's in the minor leagues in Finland. Could he eventually click? Sure. Could he miss? Probably a very good chance he could miss.
Yeah.
But those are the guys who sometimes you look back on, and if you hit on those guys, then all of a sudden it looks like a great pick. So it depends on how much risk you want to take on. But I don't think you can have it both ways. I don't think you can criticize taking a risk and the risk doesn't pay off, versus hey, well they're too safe all the time. So
yeah, can't have it both ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Bill, one of the things we've talked about a lot about is roster building, and a big topic of conversation heading into this season in the off season was surrounded with two players. Obviously, Johnny Gaudreau, who by all accounts wanted to come here. Flyers didn't have the cap space. They didn't think it was the right time to add a player like Gaudreau for the money, term, and at his age at that time. And the other one was Alex DeBrincat with Chicago in clear sell-off mode. They were empty in the cupboards. Kane and Taves still there, but a shell of what that organization was when they won the 3 cups in the 5 years. But those two players have gone to teams and with more talent than the Flyers have, mind you, and their teams are in dead last, both of them. I think it just accentuates the point that a DeBrincat or a Gaudreau may have been fun in theory and would be fun to watch, but they're not going to deliver you to the promised land. This sport, it takes a team, and I think it's really accentuated with those two acquisitions this summer by Columbus and Ottawa.
No, absolutely. And there's not a team in the league, or not a single player. When Pittsburgh drafted Crosby, the first year he was in Pittsburgh, they were still the worst team in the league, that first year. And then Malkin came along, and Letang blossomed, and Fleury really hit his stride, and all of a sudden they're a top team. But he didn't instantly turn them around. They saw it another year finishing last. Look at Connor McDavid, who's been everything he was ever hyped to be, right? And they hit on Draisaitl too, and Draisaitl's a superstar. Yeah. Is Edmonton a contender?
Nope.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're fighting for a wild card spot, and they get and if they get it, they're still not a favorite to go very far. And it's so a guy like DeBrincat or a Gaudreau, maybe they come in and put up huge numbers, but are they moving the needle enough by themselves to justify, in one case, the term and cap hit, and the other case, the risk of entailing you're bringing in a player, you're giving up assets, and you're no guarantees he's going to stay there.
Yeah.
In DeBrincat's case, he still is looking at potential unrestricted free agency. So, and it's going to be the same thing with Bo Horvat too.
Yeah,
it would be great to bring in Bo Horvat. Any team would want him. It's never a question of that. It's just a question of if you bring him in, does he move the needle enough to to take you to the next level. A, B, when you look at the cap consideration and the term, because Goudreau is now in his late 20s, and
Yeah, 29.
to sign him, yeah, and to sign him for 7 years, that he's great now. What about when he's 34, 35, and he's and the cap is starting to increase, but it's doing it slowly. Even next year, it might go up only about another $1 million or so. I mean, it just you have to look at things from a lot of different perspectives. But would Johnny Gaudreau on these Flyers, he'd probably be leading the team in scoring? They might have another couple of wins, but would they be a playoff team? Absolutely not. And DeBrincat even less so. DeBrincat is a guy who he's as much as he can light up the scoreboard. He got the Flyers for a couple earlier this year. But he's a guy who has to play with the right line mates.
Mm-hmm. Playing with Kane certainly helped.
Yeah, well, that sure as hell helped, And you get him guys who can get him the puck and get him in shooting position. But there are other things that he doesn't bring to you, and Gaudreau too, being as small as he is, if you get into a grinded out, tight checking kind of a game. Might he find space and score a big goal for you? Sure.
Yeah, if he's got Matthew Tkachuk and Elias Lindholm on his line.
Well, exactly, and that's why that's why the line exploded. I mean, that's why you had multiple 100-point guys. So, I think you have to look at the team that you have, the player you're bringing in, what your cap situation is, player's age. There's a whole lot of factors. It certainly would have been fun with Gaudreau in particular. And I don't think you can say anything other than that. And if you could move some other things around, it might have made sense. But they weren't in a situation, and the Flyers were dealing from a position of weakness, trying to create cap space. They still are to a degree, So, and you can look at the front office, and there are places you can criticize. Well, why is the team not in position to be
competing for signing guys to long-term extensions when the team has been sideways for 2+ years? I mean, that's a thing that's a legitimate concern. You go, usually when your team goes this sideways, you're not extending the group, and they've done that, and they're banking on a couple of guys, and we'll see if some of those guys are actually going to still be here beyond year one with Torts. Nothing's a guarantee, I don't think, at this point, and you may have to make some deals that you may not like the return, but it's the addition by subtraction theory, I suppose. But let's wrap up on this last thing. I think this is an interesting question that Joey B, our correspondent out there in Colorado, was at the Flyers Avs game the other night. Great guy, lives out, I believe, in Vail. Nice living out there, Joey B. His boy's a player as well. He said, Merton Bill, who are the top 3 goalies in the NHL right now? Boy, that's an interesting question, because there's a lot of really good guys. Some guys, the serious high pedigree guys like Vasilevsky, are not, having the statistical season that some other guys might be having, like Ilya Sorokin, for example, right? Like Sorokin's been great. When you look at goals saved above expectation, Sorokin's third in the league at 11.80 goals saved above. Now, that stat's a little flawed. I like it because it takes some things into context, but it's still got some flaws to it. You look at a guy like Jake Ottinger, a good young goaltender out in Dallas, but is he ready to be top 3 in the NHL? And how much do we take into account what a guy like Vasilevsky's done for a long period of time, or Shesterkin did last year, and it was just one season, and so far this season he's played in 20 games. But you're looking at the top 3. Who would your top 3 guys be? Kind of off the top of your head without really digging deep into it.
I think you also have to, you have to look at the team that's in front of the player. You have to look at the track record. It can't be only from this season. I think the guys who've been the elite goalies, the Vasilevskys, Shesterkins, those to me are still the gold standard in the league.
Yeah.
No matter whether their stats are measuring up this year. I'll tell you what, Ottinger's really knocking the door, though.
He is.
Ottinger really looks like a guy who's going to be a great goalie for a long time. We've spent a lot of this program talking about Carter Hart. He has the ability to move into that realm. There are only 32 starting jobs, and there's a lot of quality goalies in the league.
Mm-hmm.
There are only 32 good goalies. So, and sometimes it's just a little half step, or even less than half a step, as you're tearing down through the league. I think you have to go with the guys who have been the top guys until they're knocked off that pedestal. So a partial season isn't going to change that. I would go. I'd still go with the big name guys. As you said, Sorokin is right up there, knocking on that tier too.
Yeah.
So I'm still going with Vasilevsky. You win back-to-back cups. You get to a cup final that third year. You've won Vezina trophies. You're a perennial contender for it. That to me is still the gold standard in the league.
And he's disgusting in
Shesterkin
closeout
is
games.
Incredible goalie.
Yeah.
And as for the guy who I'd say is like knocking, I'm going to put Ottinger there. And I know people might debate that one.
Yeah. Maybe not enough sample size just yet for Ottinger. You look at a guy like Hellebuck, who's really been an elite goaltender out in Winnipeg and continuing to play very well out there. 927 save percentage. Sees a heavy workload. He's got 23 games already this year. Goal saved above for him is 16.64. He's a guy that I would probably consider top 3. I mean, I'm still going Vasilevsky because of the closeout games, and under the brightest of lights, he is not phased in the least. He plays a ton too, which is the greatest job in the NHL, is being his backup. Moose has got a great gig there with Tampa. And the other guy, the 3 I have are Hellebuck, number 3, Shesterkin, number 2, and Vasilevsky, number 1. But I really like Sorokin. Well, he just moves so good. Oh, unbelievable. But there's a lot of good goalies in the league. So interesting question to bat around a little bit. So good stuff from Joey B. All right. Are you back now, Bill? You having an audio issue still? Well, Bill's having an audio issue.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Jason.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to let you go, Bill. We're good.
All right. Well,
awesome stuff.
It was fun. We'll talk soon.
Yep. We'll talk for Monday's Flyers Daily. There he is, Bill Meltzer from NHL.com, HockeyBuzz.com, and PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, joining us on this episode 31 of Bet Parks Presents Stick to Hockey Live. Let me tell you about Bet Parks. Great casino and sportsbook app right in the palm of your hand. Easy to use. World Cup action for the final. Argentina and France. You can get in on that. All the hockey action, hoops, college and pro, football, you name it. It is all there for you with the Bet Parks app. So download it, use it. Same game parlays, live in-game betting, player performances. It's all there for you. Plus the standard teasers, props, futures, you name it. Download the Bet Parks app today. You do need to be over 21 and present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, that wraps it up. We'll be back Monday, another brand new edition, another hockey week will be underway. But everybody, enjoy your weekend and enjoy the hockey this weekend. Flyers, Rangers tomorrow night. And we'll break that down coming up on Mondays. Bet Parks presents Stick to Hockey Live. Have a great weekend, everybody.